Happy Halloween!
Good evening. This is the Man in Black. I am called the Man in Black because I have an aversion for the light. I am here in the studio tonight Brad, turn off the light. I'm the Man in Black. Thank you. Where was I? Tonight, I will be your host for Open Door Theater's Sorry, Wrong Number, and Other Stories. We are coming to you tonight from the dark depths of Corner Brook City Hall, a dark and mysterious theater known only as the RAC. We begin our evening tonight with a curious story about a cab driver, his passenger, and a mysterious package. Read by Rebecca Merrigan, Benjamin Merrigan, and Aidan Anderson. This is Two Heads.
One day, a taxi driver received a call from a man who was staying in a hotel in the center of the city. He wanted to be picked up and transported to the airport. When the taxi driver arrived at the hotel, he had to wait more than an hour for the man to come out. When the passenger emerged from the hotel, he was carrying 2 large bags. Always friendly and willing to assist, the taxi driver got out and tried to help the man with his bags. To his surprise, the man refused and insisted on loading the bags into the trunk of the taxi by himself. Just then, the taxi driver noticed a horrible smell. It was the stench of rot and decay, and it was coming from the bags. When he got back into the taxi, he noticed something else was strange. The passenger seemed very nervous and kept looking furtively over his shoulder.
The taxi driver followed the route to the airport. On the way, the suspicious passenger asked him to stop at the corner because he wanted to make a phone call. The driver obeyed and waited patiently while the passenger got out and ran over to a nearby payphone. As he sat in the taxi, the driver could smell the terrible stench coming from the boot. The odor of decomposition was unmistakable. The nervous passenger returned and got into the back of the cab. The driver looked in the rearview mirror and noticed that the passenger was eyeing him suspiciously. By the time they reached the airport, the passenger was extremely nervous and sweating profusely. He asked the driver to wait for him in the parking lot because he was worried that he may have missed his plane. Then the passenger got out of the taxi and hurried off.
The taxi driver was sitting there for a few minutes when he suddenly realized that the passenger had forgotten to take his bags with him. They were still in the trunk of the car. The smell was becoming so terrible that people who were passing by the taxi had to hold their noses. The driver realized that the mysterious passenger is not going to return and decided to find out what was in the bags. He got out of the car, and when he opened the trunk, he was almost overpowered by the terrible smell. With trembling hands, he opened the bags, and inside, he found 2 rotting heads.
A head of lettuce and a head of cauliflower.
I don't think that that's the tip our cab driver was hoping for. But we all know the old saying, 2 heads are better than 1. Maybe not in this case. Our next story features the most familiar situation in any Halloween story. A family camping in the woods, sitting around a campfire. As they enjoy one another's company, they realize that they may not be alone in those dark woods. And this story has a little bit of audience participation. When you hear the end of the story and they say that they are not human, could you all applause for me? This is Darcy Anderson and Ava Gesso reading Clap Once for Yes.
A family was camping and left their tent to go on a day hike. They were a few hours from their campsite when a storm suddenly blew up. They became disoriented in the wind and driving rain. They tried to trace their steps back to the campsite but became lost in the unfamiliar backcountry. Being experienced hikers, they knew once they were lost, it was best to stay in one place than wander in the woods. So they prepared to settle down and wait for rescue. Darkness fell and the family built a fire to keep warm. As they snuggled up against each other and started to drift off to sleep, they heard a noise coming from the trees.
Who's there?
One of the parents called, but there was no answer. Then they heard the sound again, but once more, when they called out, there was no answer.
Perhaps it's someone who can't speak,
Suggested the daughter, so her mom called out.
Is there anyone there? Clap once for yes and twice for no.
There was one clap.
You were right.
The parents said to their daughter.
There is someone out there. Are you here to rescue us?
Shouted the mom. Clap, clap,
Are you lost like us?
clap, clap,
Do you live out here in the woods?
clap, clap.
Let me try, said the son. Are you old?
Clap, clap,
Are you a child?
clap, clap. They all looked at each other puzzled, thinking he was being funny. The son asked.
Are you human?
Clap, clap. Now the family was scared.
Are you alone?
Called the mom. Clap, clap. The family huddled together more.
How many of you are there then?
Thank you, others from the forest. You performed your part beautifully. Our third story of the evening just so happens to take place on Halloween night, a night when spirits and monsters are known to pierce the veil to enter our world. However, for the little girl in our next story, there would be no tricking and no treating. She was confined to her bed with a fever. This is The Halloween Costume, read by Alice Brazel, Allie Beck, and Ronan White.
She was 10 years old and she was sick with a fever. It was Halloween. The doctor had given her mother strict orders to see that she stayed in bed. She lay there, listening to the faint laughter coming from downstairs. It made her feel so sad and left out. There was a Halloween party going on downstairs, and she was missing all the fun. Her cousins were there and her uncle was the host. He was always the life of the party. She imagined him telling stories and arranging the games. She wished she could be down there too. It had been a long time since anyone visited her. Earlier in the day, her cousins had poked their heads in the door and said it was a shame she was sick and would have to miss the party. That only made her feel worse. She felt like everyone had forgotten about her. She was tired of reading and the lamp was very dim. She just lay there, listening and staring at the ceiling. She listened as the old house creaked and groaned. It gave her the chills. She wished there was more light in the room. Dark shadows gathered in the corners of the room. She wasn't one of those people who believed in ghosts, but still, she hoped she never saw one. She heard footsteps coming up the stairs. She listened as they came down the hallway and stopped outside her door. Somebody knocked. "Come in," she called. The door opened and her uncle stepped into the room. He smiled at her and asked how she was feeling.
Just bored.
She sighed. "What's going on downstairs?"
I'm getting ready to put on my costume, scare everyone out of their wits,
her uncle said. Her face brightened. "Is it scary?" she asked.
Extremely.
Her uncle replied with a grin.
Can I see it?
she asked eagerly.
I don't know.
Said her uncle.
It might scare you too much.
Oh, please, she begged. Please, can I see it?
All right.
Her uncle replied.
When I get dressed up, I'll come in and show you before I go back downstairs. You sure you won't be too scared?
Of course I won't, she laughed. Her uncle left, closing the door behind him, and she lay back down, nervous with anticipation. She listened as his footsteps disappeared down the hallway. She lay there waiting for some time, wondering what kind of costume her uncle would be wearing. Would it be scary? Would she be frightened? She hoped he wouldn't jump out at her or burst into the room. Everything was eerily quiet. She couldn't hear anything at all from downstairs. The room was very dark. She was sure the lamp was getting dimmer. The shadows in the corners were growing. She closed her eyes for a little while and waited. Her uncle seemed to be taking ages. Where was he? What was taking him so long? Just then, she heard a sound. Her eyes flicked open. It sounded like a door opening and closing. Her heart began beating quickly. Had he come in? Was he already in the room? She looked at the door. Then, as her eyes adjusted to the light, she noticed a figure in the shadows. It was standing between the door and the wardrobe. The figure was small, no higher than a table. It was standing there with its back to her, wrapped in a black cloak that almost blended into the shadows. That's why she hadn't seen it at first. A thrill of fear and excitement ran through her body. She gripped the bedclothes with her hands and gave a little gasp. How had he managed to slip in without her noticing? The figure was slowly turned to face her. She tried not to show how frightened she was. The face was hideous. It was a dead, pale face with a long, pointed nose. There were no eyes, just small black holes in the mask. It was too good. It looked almost real. She laughed again nervously as the figure emerged from the shadows and moved towards her. She braced herself. She didn't want to scream. She didn't want him to be able to tell everyone downstairs how much he had frightened her. She stared at the horrible face as it came closer and closer. It was too scary. She couldn't take it. She flung the bedclothes over her head and tried not to scream. She was about to tell her uncle to stop when she heard something. Somebody was knocking at the door. She heard her uncle's voice.
I'm ready.
He said,
Can I come in now?
I guess in that story, in the end, Halloween came knocking on the little girl's door. Which brings us to our feature presentation this evening. Tonight, I'm introducing to you a program written by a woman who has seen into the darkest side of human weakness, the hateful, the mean, the thoughtless, that leads to murder. Tonight, from Corner Brook, we present a compelling actress we discovered in the dark, dreary, dank Davis Street. Here in Corner Brook, Holly Hines appears in a study of terror written by Lucille Fletcher called Sorry, Wrong Number, about a woman who is caught in an unfortunate predicament involving the telephone company and the police. This program is not for the squeamish. Listen at your own risk.
Operator, I've been trying to call Murray Hill 40098 for the last half hour and it's been busy. I don't see how it could possibly be busy for that long. Can you try that number for me, please?
I'll be glad to try that number for you. One moment, please.
I don't see how it could be busy all that time. It's my husband's office, and I'm here all alone in the house. My health is very poor, and I've been feeling so nervous all day.
Ringing Murray Hill 40098.
Hello?
Hello, is Mr. Stevenson there?
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello, George?
Yes, this is George speaking.
Hello, who is this? What number am I calling, please?
I'm here with our client.
Oh, good. Is everything okay? Is the coast clear for tonight?
Yes, George. He says the coast is clear for tonight.
Okay.
Where are you now?
In a phone booth. Don't worry, everything's okay.
Very well. You know the address.
Yes, I know. Let's see now. At 11 o'clock, the private patrolman goes around the corner to 2nd Avenue for a beer.
That's right, 11 o'clock. And be sure all the lights downstairs are out.
Okay,
There should be only one light visible from the street.
okay.
What's that? Just a minute, George. Oh, our client tells me that at 11:15, a train crosses the bridge. It makes noise in case a window is open and she should scream.
Hello? What number is this, please?
Okay, I understand. That's 11:15 the train, eh?
Yeah. Do you remember everything else, George?
Yeah. I'll make it quick. As little blood as possible, because our client does not wish to make her suffer.
That's right. You'll use a knife?
Yes, a knife. It'll be okay. The afterwards, I'll remove the rings and the bracelets and the jewelry and the bureau drawer, because our client wishes it to look like a simple robbery. Don't worry, everything's okay. I know.
Oh, how awful. How unspeakably awful. Operator?
Your number, please.
Operator, I've just been cut off.
What number were you calling?
Whoa, operator, I was supposed to be calling Murray Hill 40098, but it wasn't. Some wires must have crossed. I was cut into a wrong number, and I've just heard the most dreadful thing. Something about a murder, and operator, you'll simply have to retrace that call at once.
I beg your pardon? May I help you?
I know it was a wrong number, and I had no business listening, but these two men, they were so cold-blooded friends. They were going to murder someone, some poor, innocent woman who was all alone in a house near a bridge, and we've got to stop them. We've just got to.
What number are you dialing?
It doesn't matter what number I was calling. This was a wrong number, and you dialed it for me, and we've got to find out what it was immediately.
What number did you call?
Oh, why are you so stupid? What time is it? Do you mean to tell me you can't find out what number was just now?
I'll connect you to the chief operator.
Oh, I think it's perfectly shameful. Now look, it must have obviously a case of a little slip of the finger. I told you to try Murray Hill 40098 for me, but you dialed it. But your finger must have slipped, and I was connected with some other number. I could hear them, but they couldn't hear me. Now, I simply fail to see why you couldn't make the same mistake again on purpose. Why couldn't you try dialing Murray Hill 40098 in the same careless way?
Murray Hill 40098. I will try and get that for you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Murray Hill 40098 is busy.
Operator?
Your call, please.
You didn't try to get that number wrong at all. I asked you explicitly, and all you did was dial it correctly.
I am sorry. What number are you calling?
Can't you for once forget what number I'm calling and do something for me? Now, I want you to trace that call. It's my civic duty, and it's your civic duty to trace that call and apprehend those dangerous killers. And if you won't,
I'll connect you with the chief operator.
well, please. All this talk can't make anyone listen.
This is the chief operator.
Oh, chief operator, I want you to trace a call. A telephone call, immediately. I don't know where it came from or who was making it, but it was absolutely necessary it be tracked down because it was about a murder of someone's planning. A terrible, cold-blooded murder of some poor, innocent woman tonight at 11:15.
I see.
Can you trace it for me? Can you track down those men?
Well, I'm not certain. It depends.
It depends on what?
Well, it depends on whether the call is still going on. If it's a live call, we can trace down the equipment. If it's been disconnected, we can't.
Disconnected?
If the parties have stopped talking to each other.
Oh, but of course they've stopped talking to each other by now. That was at least 5 minutes ago, and they didn't sound like the type to make a long phone call.
Well, I could try tracing it. May I have your name, please?
Mrs. Stevenson. Mrs. Albert Stevenson. But listen.
And your telephone number, please?
Plaza 32098. But if you go on wasting all this time...
Why do you want this call traced?
Why? No reason. I mean, I merely felt very strongly that something ought to be done about it. These men sounded like killers. They're dangerous. They're going to murder this woman at 11:15 tonight. I thought the police ought to know.
Have you reported this to the police?
Well, no, not yet.
You want this call checked purely as a private individual?
Yes, but meanwhile...
I'm sorry, Miss Stevenson, but I'm afraid we couldn't make this check for you and trace this call just on your say-so.
But
as a private individual.
Why?
We have to do something more official.
Oh, for heaven's sake. You mean to tell me you can't report that there's going to be a murder without getting a tied up in all this red tape. Why, it's perfectly idiotic. Well, all right. I'll call the police.
I'm sure that will be the best way to deal with.
Ridiculous. Never heard of such nonsense.
Your call, please.
Police department. Get me the police department, please.
Ring the police department.
Oh, can't you ring them direct?
Police Station 43, Sergeant Martin speaking.
Police department. This is Mrs. Stevenson, Mrs. Albert Smith Stevenson, on 53 North Sutton Place. I'm calling to report a murder.
Yeah?
I mean, the murder hasn't been committed yet. I just overheard the plans for it on the telephone, over a wrong number that the operator gave me, and I've been trying to trace down the call myself. But everyone is so stupid, and I guess in the end, you're the only people who can do anything.
Yes, ma'am.
It was definitely murder. I heard their plans distantly. 2 men were talking, and they were going to murder some woman at 11:15 tonight. She lived in a house near a bridge. Are you listening to me?
Yeah? Oh, yes, ma'am.
And there was going to be a private patrolman on the street. He was going to go around for a beer on 2nd Avenue, and there was some third man, a client, who was paying to have this poor woman murdered. They were going to take her rings and bracelets and use a knife. Well, it unnerved me dreadfully, and I'm not well.
Yes, I see. When was all this, ma'am?
About 8 minutes ago. Oh, you have to do something. You do understand.
What's your name, ma'am?
Mrs. Stevenson, Mrs. Albert Stevenson.
And your address?
53 North Sutton Place. That's near a bridge. The Queensboro Bridge, you know, and we have that private patrolman on our street.
Yeah?
And 2nd Avenue is...
And what was the number you were calling?
Murray Hill, 40098. But that wasn't the number I overheard. I mean, Murray Hill, 40098 is my husband's office.
Mm-hmm.
He's working late tonight, and I was trying to reach him to ask him to come home.
Yes.
I'm a very sick woman, you know, and it's the maid's night off, and I hate to be alone even though he says...
Yeah, well...
As long as you have the telephone right there beside my bed.
Well, we'll look into it, Miss Stevenson, and see if we can check with the telephone company.
The telephone company said they couldn't check the call. The parties have stopped talking. I've already taken care of that.
Oh, you have?
Yes, and personally, I feel you ought to do something more immediate and drastic than check the call. What good does checking the call do if they've stopped talking? By the time you tracked it down, they already have committed the murder.
Yeah, well, we'll take care of it. Don't you worry.
I say the whole thing calls for a search, a complete and thorough search of the whole city. I'm very near a bridge, and I'm not very far.
You said.
From 2nd Avenue, and I'd feel a whole lot better if you sent around a radio car to this neighborhood at once.
Well, what makes you think the murder's going to be committed in your neighborhood, ma'am?
Well, I don't know. Only the coincidence is so horrible. 2nd Avenue, the patrolman, the bridge.
Yeah, well, 2nd Avenue, you know, is a very long street, ma'am. And you know how many bridges there are in the city of New York alone. Not to mention Brooklyn, Staten Island, and Queens, and the Bronx.
I know all that.
How do you know it isn't some little house on Staten Island on some little 2nd Avenue you never heard about? How do you even know they're talking about New York at all?
But I heard the call on the New York dialing system.
Well, maybe it was a long-distance call you overheard.
No.
You know, telephones are funny things. Now look, why don't you look at it this way? Supposing you hadn't broken in on that telephone call, supposing you got your husband the way you always do, you wouldn't be so upset, would you?
Well, I suppose not, but it sounded so humane, so cold-blooded.
Well, a lot of murders are plotted in the city every day, ma'am. We managed to prevent almost all of them, but a clue of this kind is so vague, it isn't much more use to us than no clue at all.
But surely you can.
Unless, of course, you have some reason for thinking this call was phony, and somebody was planning to murder you.
Me? No, I hardly think so. I mean, why should anybody? I'm alone all day and night. I see nobody except my maid, Eloise. She's a very lazy woman.
Yeah?
She's too lazy to bring up my breakfast tray.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other person is my husband, Albert. He's crazy about me. He adores me. He waits my hand and foot. And has scarcely left my side since I took sick 12 years ago.
Yeah, well, then there's nothing for you to worry about, and you just leave the rest of this to us. We'll take care of it.
Well, what will you do? It's so late. It's nearly 11 now.
We'll take care of it, lady.
Well, will ya? Broadcast it over the city and send out squads and warn your radio cards to watch out, especially in suspicious neighborhoods like mine.
Lady, I said we'll take care of it. Now, I've got a couple other matters here on my desk that require immediate attention, so, good night, ma'am. Thank you.
Oh, you idiot! Oh, why did I hang up the phone like that?
Now he'll think I'm a fool. Oh, why doesn't Albert come home? Why doesn't he? I'll get that operator again.
Your call, please.
Operator, for heaven's sake, will you ring that Murray Hill 40098 number again? I can't think what's keeping him so long.
I'll try it for you. I'm sorry. Murray Hill 40098 is busy. I'll try.
I can hear it. You don't have to tell me. I know it's busy. If only I could get out of this bed for a little while. If only I could get a breath of fresh air or lean out the window and see the street. Hello? Albert? Hello? 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 Oh, what's the matter with this phone? Hello? 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 Oh, for heaven's sake, who is this? Hello? 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 Who is trying to call me? What are they trying to do to me?
Your call, please.
Hello, operator. I don't know what's the matter with this telephone tonight, but it's positively driving me crazy. I've seen such inefficient, miserable service. Now look, I'm a very sick woman, and I'm very nervous. I'm not supposed to be annoyed, but if this keeps going on much longer...
What seems to be the trouble?
Well, everything's wrong. I haven't had one bit of satisfaction out of one call I've made this evening. The whole world could be murdered for all you people care. And now, my phone keeps ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing every 5 seconds or so. So when I pick it up, there's no one there.
I'm sorry. If you will hang up, I will test it for you.
I don't want you to test it for me. I want you to put that call through, whatever it is, at once.
I'm afraid I cannot do that.
You can't? And why? Why, may I ask?
The dial system is automatic. If someone is trying to dial your number, there is no way to check whether the call is coming through the system or not, unless the person who is trying to reach you complains to his particular operator.
Well, of all the stupid, and meanwhile, I get to sit here in my bed, suffering every time that phone rings, imagining everything.
I will try to check the trouble.
Check it. Check it.
For you, ma'am.
Oh, what's the use of talking to you? You're so stupid. I'll fix her. How dare she speak to me like that? How dare she speak to me like that?
Your call, please.
Young woman, I don't know your name, but there are ways of finding out, and I'm going to report to you to your superiors for the most unpardonable rudeness and insolence that's ever been in my privilege. Oh, give me that business office at once.
You may dial that number direct.
Dial it direct. I'll do no such thing. I don't even know the number.
The number is in the directory. You may secure it by dialing in 4.
Listen here, you... What's the use? Oh, for heaven's sake, I'm going out of my mind. Hello? Hello? Stop ringing me. Do you hear me? Answer me. Who is this? Do you realize you're driving me crazy? Who's calling? What are you doing it for? Now stop it. Stop it. Stop it. I say, if you don't stop ringing me, I'm going to call the police. Do you hear me? Hello? Hello? If Albert could only come home. Oh, let it ring. Let it go on ringing. I won't answer it. I won't answer it this time. If he keeps going on ringing all night, I won't answer it. I won't answer it. It stopped. Why did it stop ringing all of a sudden? What time is it? Where's my clock? Where is it? 5 to 11. They've decided something. I'm sure of. They're sure I'm home. I've heard my voice answering. That's why they've been ringing. Oh, where is she? Why doesn't she answer?
Your call, please.
Where were you just now? Why didn't you answer? Give me the police department.
I'm sorry. The line is busy. I'll call you when...
Busy? That's impossible. The police department can't be busy. There must be other lines available.
The line is busy. I'll try to get them for you later.
No, I've got to speak to them now. It may be too late. I've got to talk to someone.
What number do you wish to speak to?
I don't know, but there must be someone to protect people besides the police department. Detective agency.
You'll find agencies listed in the classified directory.
I don't have it classified. I mean, I'm too nervous to look it up. I don't know how to use the book.
I'll connect you with information. Perhaps she will be able to help you.
No. Oh, you're being spiteful, aren't you? I don't care what happens to me. I can die, and you won't care. Oh, stop it.
stop it. I can't stand anymore. Hello? What do you want? Stop ringing. Will you stop?
Hello, is this Plaza 32099?
Yes. Yes, this is Plaza 32099.
This is Western Union. I have a telegram here from Miss Albert Stevenson. Is there anyone there to receive the message?
I'm Mrs. Stevenson.
The telegram is as follows. Miss Albert Stevenson, 53 North 7 Place, New York, New York. Darling, terribly sorry. Tried to get you for last hour, but line busy. Leaving for Boston 11 p.m. tonight on urgent business. Back tomorrow afternoon. Keep happy. Love. Signed, Albert.
Oh, no.
Do you wish us to deliver a copy of the message?
No. Thank you.
Thank you, madame. Good night.
Good night. No, I don't believe it. He couldn't do that. He couldn't do it. Nobody knows I'll be all alone. It's some trick. It's some trick. I know it.
Your number, please?
Operator, try that number. Murray Hill, 40098 for me. Just once more, please.
You may dial that number direct.
Oh. 40098. Oh no, you're gone. Oh, Albert, how could you? How could you? But if you stay here all alone tonight, I can't. If I'm home one more second, I'll go mad. I don't care what he says or what expenses. I'm a sick woman, and I'm entitled to some consideration.
This is information. May I help you?
I want the telephone number of Henchley Hospital.
Henchley Hospital? Do you have a street address?
No. It's somewhere in the 70s. It's a very small, private, and exclusive hospital where I had my appendix out 2 years ago. Henchley. Henchley.
1 moment, please.
Please, hurry. And please, what time is it?
You may find out the time by dialing Meridian 71212.
Oh, for heaven's sake. I have no time to be dialing.
The number of Henchley Hospital is Butterfield 89970.
Is that Henchley Hospital?
Henchley Hospital?
Nurse registry.
Who is it that you want to speak to?
I want a nurse registry at once. I want a trained nurse. I want to hire her immediately for the night.
I see. What is the nature of the case, madam?
Nerves. I'm very nervous, and I need soothing and companionship. You see, my husband is away, and...
Have you been recommended to us by any doctor in particular, madam?
No, but I really want to see why all this is necessary. I want a trained nurse. I was a patient at your hospital 2 years ago, and after all, I do expect to pay this person for attending me.
I quite understand that, madam, but these are war times, you know. Registered nurses are very scarce just now. And our superintendent has asked us to send people out only on cases where the physician in charge feels it is absolutely necessary.
Well, it is absolutely necessary. I'm sick, and I'm very upset. Very. I'm alone in this house, and I'm a very sick woman. And tonight I overheard a telephone call that upset me dreadfully. A woman is going to be killed when a train crosses a bridge. In fact, if someone doesn't come at once, I'm afraid I'll go out of my mind.
Well, I'll speak to Miss Phillips as soon as she comes in. And what is your name, madam?
Miss Phillips. When do you expect her to come in?
I really couldn't say. She went out to supper at 11 o'clock.
11 o'clock? But it isn't 11 yet. Oh, my clock stopped. I thought it was running down. What time is it?
Just 15 minutes past 11.
What was that?
What was what, madam?
That clicked just now, in my telephone, as though someone had lifted the receiver off the hook, off the extension telephone downstairs.
I didn't hear it, madam. Now, about this nurse.
But I did. There's someone in this house, someone downstairs, in the kitchen. And they're listening to me now. I won't pick it up. I won't let them hear me. I'll be quiet. And they'll think, but if I don't call someone now while they're still down there, there'll be no time. I've got to get that operator.
Your call, please?
Operator. I'm in desperate trouble.
I'm sorry, I cannot hear you. Please speak louder.
I don't dare speak louder. There's someone listening. Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry.
But you've got to hear me. Please. You've got to help me. There's someone in this house. Someone who's gonna murder me. And you've got to get in touch with
There it is. Did you hear it? He put it down. He put down the extension phone. He's coming up the stairs. Give me the police department.
One moment, please. I will connect you.
Okay, hurry. I can hear him. Oh no. Please. Oh God, hurry. No.
Police Department, Precinct 53. Sergeant Martin speaking.
Police department? Oh, I'm sorry. Must have got the wrong number. Don't worry. Everything's okay.
While things did not turn out too well for Mrs. Stevenson, fortunately, the author of tonight's tale spared you the embarrassment of including a song performed by the producer's wife. Mr. Stevenson, by the way, did not completely escape justice. He moved to California with his secretary, Marge, where he has won a seat on the San Diego City Council. Sorry, Wrong Number was originally produced and broadcast live by Columbia Broadcasting on May 25th, 1943, starring the legendary actress of the legitimate theater, Miss Agnes Moorehead. Adam Brake directed this production with Holly Hines. Thank you for joining me in tonight's reprise of Suspense. This is your announcer, the Man in Black. Thank you for listening to Open Door Theater's Sorry, Wrong Number and Other Stories. Two Heads was read by Rebecca Merrigan, Benjamin Merrigan, and Aidan Anderson. Clap Once for Yes was read by Darcy Anderson and Ava Gesso. The Halloween costume was read by Alice Brazel, Allie Beck, and Ronan White. Sorry, Wrong Number was read by Holly Hines, Aaliyah Jones, Oliver Flynn, Sam LeDrew Gallant, Rhea Vaders, Aaron Easton, Ella Brothers, Rebecca Merrigan, Carrie Hoskins, Nate Seftel, Noah Melbourne, Violet Halford, Victoria Rose Bennett, Harper Lovell, Percy Beardsworth, and Georgie Lovell. Foley artists were Rex Miller, Danica Maloney, and Josh Langford. Thanks for listening.